Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Tuesday, November 5th. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. It's Election Day, and we wanted to hear straight from voters what's at the top of their minds.
Well, I feel like this is probably the most important election of my lifetime because of what's going on in this country right now. Things need to change.
We'll hear from more voters up and down the valley, but first, a few of the stories we're following today as votes are cast. Will the critical youth vote turn out at the ballot box today? That's a question being asked in a congressional swing district in the San Joaquin Valley. As KVPR's Rachel Livenall reports, young people make up a third of registered voters in the counties represented by incumbent Republican John Duarte. He's in a bitter fight to keep his seat.
In Merced County, the only one wholly represented by Congressional District 13, those between the ages of 26 to 35 make up the largest portion of registered voters. The race between incumbent John Duarte and his opponent Adam Gray is a toss-up, just like it was 2 years ago. But aside from a few civically engaged political youth groups, KVPR reporting finds many young people in the district haven't been super familiar with this race and even feel disaffected by the election in general. Gray's campaign has tried to register young people at nearby college campuses. Duarte, meanwhile, has promised to deliver things like employment and affordable housing if he stays in office. For KVPR News, I'm Rachel Livenall.
After months of campaigning and millions of advertising dollars spent, we are awaiting results on another nail-biter election in the Valley. KVPR's Joshua Yeager reports on the stakes in Congressional District 22.
Republican incumbent David Valadao is defending his seat against Democrat Rudy Salas, whom he narrowly defeated in 2022 by 3 percentage points. The two candidates have poured vast resources into the largely rural district that covers all of Kings County and parts of Tulare and Kern. Democrats believe their path to victory depends on reaching reluctant voters. This district has far more registered Democrats than Republicans, and Biden carried the region in 2020. But analysts say chronically low turnout has worked against Democrats. The Republican in this race, meanwhile, has painted himself as a moderate, who even voted to impeach Trump. But Valadao has refused to publicly endorse a presidential candidate in this election. For KVPR News, I'm Joshua Yeager in Bakersfield.
And in the race for the White House, if former President Donald Trump is reelected, he's promised to deport millions of immigrants who are in the country illegally. As KVPR's Esther Quintanilla reports, experts warn that mass deportations could have drastic effects in places like the Central Valley.
An estimated 2 million undocumented immigrants live in California, and a huge portion work in the valley's major industries. For instance, nearly half of the agricultural workforce is estimated to be undocumented. Farm leaders from across the nation warn that, if enacted, the policy could lead to massive food shortages. Researchers at UC Merced also predict the deportations could increase violence and intimidation against these workers and drastically impact the local economy in ways that could then ripple across the U.S. Governor Gavin Newsom vetoed recent state legislation to increase worker protections. And now, activists are pushing for new legislation to boost the safety net for undocumented workers. For KVPR News, I'm Esther Quintanilla.
Support for Central Valley Daily comes from the members of KVPR. Join at $8 or more per month and access ad-free NPR podcasts through NPR Plus. Give now at kvpr.org/donate.
And now to our main story. Election Day is here. Millions of voters across the country have cast their ballots already, and the polls close for good at 8 p.m. tonight. While we wait for results to come in, KVPR wanted to know what races are important to San Joaquin Valley residents and what's drawing local voters to fill out their ballots. Because although California may be a blue state, the San Joaquin Valley is purple, deep purple. Nearly 1.5 million people are registered to vote in the 7 counties between Merced and Kern. And the party breakdown is nearly neck and neck. As of data from late October, 35.2% of voters in these 7 counties are registered as Democrats, and 35.6% are registered as Republicans. Those who choose no party preference account for just under 21% of voters. And we're ethnically diverse, too. According to data from Fresno State, Valley residents identify with more than 70 different ethnicities and speak more than 100 languages. Reporters from KVPR's newsroom talked to voters across the Valley about what matters to them, and we found, perhaps not surprisingly, that opinions and perspectives in the Valley are just as diverse and varied as our population. One thing that many have in common, a desire for change. KVPR's Rachel Livenall spoke with Deborah Parasot, a 66-year-old walnut farmer in Atwater.
Well, I feel like this is probably the most important election of my lifetime because of what's going on in this country right now. Things need to change.
Specifically, she's talking about inflation, rising costs of food, gas, and expenses. She fears what could happen if prices don't ease up soon, and she's looking to national races to make life easier, especially for farmers. Parasot didn't share who she voted for, but with other people we surveyed, we found that issues that are important to them roughly fall along party lines. For instance, Freddie Douglas is a 72-year-old Vietnam veteran in Merced County. His priorities include reducing immigration to the U.S. and stopping abortion. His candidate for president? Former President Donald Trump.
Well, for me, it's critical that the Republicans take the ticket, that President Trump gets back in the office. He did an absolutely fantastic job. Us as black folks, black men, especially businessmen, we understand what he did, and we understand where he came from.
Also in Merced County, 66-year-old Richard Post agrees. He feels Democrats aren't boosting the economy the way they used to.
I'm a conservative Republican, always been. I was born and raised a Democrat. My parents were Democrats, and I have never voted Democrat because that's not the same party that it was at all.
On the other side of the political spectrum, Democrats say they care about education as well as personal and civil freedoms. 45-year-old Paul Haggard in Fresno spoke with KVPR reporter Esther Quintanilla. He's worried about civil unrest after the election. Locally, he was surprised to see the disrepair in schools that led to so many school bonds on the ballot. His priorities?
Democracy, women's rights, just rights in general being taken away and things like that.
In Bakersfield, Sandra Yoa reflected many voters we spoke to. She's paying much more attention to who's in the White House and the decisions they make or inspire. She told KVPR's Joshua Yeager that her main priority is her kids.
My daughter's issues, freedom of female to have her rights to do anything, and then my son's gay rights. So those are my important things, my daughter, my son.
There are also those who wouldn't share their party or who they voted for, like 50-year-old Phyllis Moore from Fresno. She hopes whoever's elected will look out for people and try to prevent homelessness in light of skyrocketing housing costs. And she hopes they're spiritual.
You know, just want to make sure that our future, our children, our grandchildren have a chance, you know. So we got to start today, figure out who's a good leader. And I just pray to God that it's someone that believes in him. Because I am a Christian, so I do believe that they have to have some type of personal relationship with God.
This feeling of hope was found in others, like John King, a 67-year-old Navy veteran in Fresno.
Yeah, I'm hoping that our nation can see a time of peace again and reform our immigration system to get it straight and make it adaptable to changes in immigration flows. And our economy gets moving again, and a lot of small businesses can, start to prosper and hire people, and people can begin to enjoy the American dream again.
It's not just national candidates that have caught people's attention. Many are following local races, too. Earlier this summer, KVPR surveyed a few dozen voters across the Valley about their preferences and interests. One question we asked was, who is an elected official who's delivered for you? And you delivered for us. Your answers included a spectrum of officials from both sides of the aisle, like Supervisors Eddie Valero of Tulare County and Robert McCauley of Madera County. People appreciate Merced City Council member Fu Shang and Fresno City Council member Annalisa Perea. Fresno's current mayor, Jerry Dyer, and former mayor Ashley Swearingen also made the list, as did Democratic Congressman Jim Costa and Republican Congressman David Valadao. Thank you to those who responded to our survey. We'll be sure to stay in touch. And whatever you're feeling, we hope you get out and vote today if you haven't already. And you can listen to live special election night coverage from NPR News on our broadcast station this afternoon starting at 4 p.m. You can tune in to KVPR on your radio at 89.3 FM in Fresno or 89.1 in Bakersfield. You can also listen on our website, kvpr.org, or on the KVPR app, where you will find additional election coverage. And that does it for today's episode. Jonathan Linden and Carrie Klein produced today's episode with help from KVPR reporters Joshua Yeager, Esther Quintanilla, and Rachel Livenall. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
No matter what happens in Washington, the NPR Politics Podcast is here for you. For the latest news, insights, and analysis from the election and beyond, listen to the NPR Politics Podcast.